yo, it's your, no, wait a minute, that's not my line. Well, it just doesn't feel right when that isn't said at the beginning of the game. So, hey, yo, it's your boy Alphadean here. But, it should be Ancient Albatross and Anthony, but they can't make it tonight. But at any rate, we're going to talk about something that gets talked about on the server a lot, which is basically how to run a longer campaign or in progression, character progression. Big things that people talk about all the time. People say character progression is too fast, or, long campaign Cypher isn't built for longer campaigns. And I beg to differ. And I beg to differ very simply because if you are looking at your Cypher System campaigns as a story, it should be encapsulated in the amount of time or idea of what it is you're trying to do. So you're the GM. You can curate the system and the storyline to run progressively as you see fit. And it's not that hard to do. You can use milestone leveling as far as people going up, or you just control the amount of XP you're given. You can also break the XP down into two pools. One pool is the active pool that can be used during in-game, where the second pool is just used for character progression. We've talked about these things before in small doses. So let's kind of break it down. The first thing we'll look at is the question of character progression. When you're looking at Cypher System and you look at other games have you go out and fight monsters, and you got these long lists of creatures and so on and so forth. And you as a GM, you do the same thing. You literally curate how many monsters, how much XP they're going to earn, at this level and this level and this level, which will basically move it forward. If you're looking at like Dungeons and Dragons, it's very simple. D&D, to go to each additional level, it costs you more experience. So the idea of going up in level seems like it takes longer. But you as a GM, you curate that, because what do? You put more difficult creatures that are worth more experience points. Cypher System, a little bit different because it's not hinged on earning XP for whatever creature you take out or whatever the case may be. So it's very nice in the sense that you can just say, hey, these encounters are worth 2 XP apiece or 4 XP apiece, or however many you want to give out at the end of a session. It takes 4 XP to move up, one ability or power or so on and so forth within Cypher. So you look at that. Do you want your game to last? If you want your game to last a year, you know what? 4 XP, that means what? Over the course of 12 months, you need to give out 38 XP? No, that's wrong. I was supposed to write that down. But at any rate, it's 16 XP per tier. So however that will work out over the course of a year. But if you want it to last longer, cut those amounts down. And because I don't have anybody else to talk to, it seems like I'm ranting, and I don't want to feel like I'm ranting. So if there's any comments from the audience, please, throw them up there, because I am watching the stream, and I'll keep going. So that's number one. Number two is the story itself, or curating the game to work within the parameters of the system, which is a really cool aspect of Cypher System because of the amount of mechanics that are there. Depending on what kind of game you want to run, this will allow you to curate the game and the system to function how you see fit. So moving forward in that respect, you look at, let's just say we're going to do a superhero game. And if we were running superhero games, okay, you have an overarching storyline. Is it going to be an Avengers Endgame style game? Is it going to be a multiverse of madness type thing that you got going on? And because it's your option, you don't have to encapsulate it in a 2 hour, 2.5 hour, 3 hour movie. You can actually draw it out over the course of a season or a set of issues. So these points, again, allow you to control progression. You have to look at your story as in its component parts. There's the setup. There's the build up, or the setup build up slash moving forward. Then we move into the meat of it, the main action sequence. Then we're going to move into the closing. So how do you want to set your adventure up, your game up? And the best example of that, and I use these things as examples because Cypher System is built on the concept of cinematic action, cinematic stories, and so on and so forth. Look at a TV show. Look at the TV show Babylon 5. Babylon 5 was a perfect example. It was a 5-season show. The show literally had an introduction, a build-up, it rose to an epic point, and then the last season was the swan song. They even had a season in the show that was basically from the perspective of the secondary characters, the people who worked maintenance and the people who worked, in other places. They weren't the main characters. So they had a lot of episodes in the 4th season that dealt with people looking at things through the aftermath, of the Great War, which, took us on to the ending. Great stuff. Use those type things to inspire you to greater heights when it comes to your storytelling. Let's see. Somebody said that talking about raising the number. Yeah, you could. No cap games as with raising the level up number. Would it hurt the game to make it leveling 8 XP points instead of 4? Not at all. You could literally say that they have to, we've done it where you had to have 6 items leveled up before you go to tier 2. I've done it that way. It really depends on what type of game you're running. If you're going to run something that's hardcore and gritty, I don't see an issue with it. That's actually really nice, nice to do. I think Al, you just wrote raining. You like raining XP on your players, otherwise they might feel the need to hoard. But again, if you break it into 2 pools, hey, this is the pool for progression, but this pool is for everything in game. So now you're encouraging players to use their XP more. You're also encouraging players to become a little bit inventive, and they might start using their XP in game to get long-term benefits and things of that nature. So again, easily control, as far as the story is concerned, and as far as the progression of the players are concerned. Stormbringer, he brings up a good point. He said, if you're new, just play straight and tweak as you play. Listen to your players and make adjustments. That is some of the best advice. That's even good advice for people who are long-time gamers, because it just really depends. Do you want a long-term campaign that's going to last, years and years and years? Or do you want to be able to tell encapsulated stories? So you might have one campaign that lasts a year and another campaign that lasts 2 years, and then you might want to do some, one-shots, and even with that, you can play a game with one-shots where you turn it into like an episodic show. So you could literally have all these one-shots, but have the people playing the same characters within the same world, but they all kind of end up hinging together. It's an experiment that I'm playing with right now to come up with an idea I want to run. I want to actually write a series of one-shots that will tie together, kind of like if you look at the Twilight Zone or the Outer Limits that got remade. this was the shows were episodic, but there was a ending story at the end of every season that kind of tied the entire season together. So this is something that I'm playing with, trying to come up with a good way to do, like, 10, 12 one shots. And then the last one, the 13th or the 14th one, whatever, will be a overarching, maybe 3-4 part story that ties in all these other one shots that didn't seem to have any connections. So many ways to extend a story, so many ways to extend a campaign that with other more traditional systems, more crunchy systems, you might have, it's easier in the sense that it's built in, the slowdowns and so on and so forth. But that's also part of the limitations that in my opinion, I'm just not the king of heavy systems anymore, crunchy systems. I still buy them, I still read them, I find merit, but I don't want to run those things anymore. I want to tell stories, and I want to get it, and I want everybody to have fun at the table. Eric, what you saying here? Power shifts are a blast. If you want to make them feel powerful, don't attach them to characters. Attach them to items that are X amount of uses, have depletion, or are vehicles. Then you aren't using them everywhere. Once again, great idea. Something that I don't know if I've ever thought about it, but now that you say it, it's like, okay, that makes perfect sense. That's like right here in the wheelhouse. It feels like it's part of the toolkit. It's always been there. But that's a great thing to do. And that's the thing about Cypher System that I think a lot of people mistake. They look at the rules as gospel and not as a blueprint. Cypher System rules are built to be blueprints. There's written to be inspirational. They're also written to be manipulated as you see fit, so it works for your game. Al said normal characters hit tier 6 but want to keep going. They start earning power shifts. That's another way to use power shifts. You could even implement that, characters can pick up another focus, but maybe you limit the number of levels in that focus or the number of powers in that focus. So many different ways to do it. You could actually have them or add to their focus, which means that you start, taking the focus to its next evolutionary point. And those things are, some, again, the nuances that I think we miss with Cypher System, and we limit ourselves by looking at Cypher through the lens of other games. Brilliant Loser. Hey, Seuss, what's up, buddy? Says to borrow ideas from Fabula Ultima, a good way to continue progression is maybe they find an artifact with its own focus and can level that up. Exactly what Eric was saying, and which makes perfect sense. Again, you can start using the mechanics in Cypher to actually increase the amount of time it takes to get through a story, which is awesome. When you think about it, if you take, let's say, for example, when the character reaches tier 6 and they want to continue to play that particular character and you want the progression to continue, okay, fine. So now you introduce shock and fatigue into the game, or which is just the shock mechanic, and fatigue would be a variation on the madness mechanic. Instead of making it, the characters are going mad, no, now they're fatigued, when they start using these abilities beyond the scope of where they started out at, and then there's ways that you can have built into the system that they can buy that off using XP to buy off those hindrances or those detriments that come with using these new powers. It's no different. Like I said, if you want to run a gritty game, same principle, same idea. You can make progression take longer, as well as, with manipulating recovery rolls. See, my brain was, getting ahead of my mouth. But yeah, you can manipulate it like using recovery rolls. So for example, a character, needs to heal up, but you can't. You don't get 4 recovery rolls in a day. You get 2. Or you get all 4 recovery rolls, but only your 10-hour recovery roll can be used for, let's just say you're a magic user, can only be used to, recover mana. It's so many ways to, manipulate this situation. Let's see. Right. Brilliant Loser came up with another way of using it. He said, like, I defeated a god of rage. Now I have an axe that rages, but I need to earn the attunement over time. All sorts of stuff. Again, another great suggestion from the audience. Stormbringer Mike, you bring up an excellent point. Character arts can be required for each tier. So that means in order for you to get to the next tier, you can even spend all the XP, have all 4 of your level ups done. But until you complete that character arc, you don't go to the next tier, which would be that right there. That's a brilliant waste. I mean, waste, not a brilliant way to, extend your adventures. Because if they have a character arc, something going on at every tier, whether they do the same one over and over again, they're trying to find your family and it's a different family member at each tier, or you could come up with group arcs, group story arcs, and so on and so forth. Wonderful ways to have fun. Eric said, if you want the feeling of grit and tired, you move all recovery ahead 1 shift. So it starts with 10 minutes. That works too. So it'd be 10 minute, 1 hour, 10 hour, and 18 hours or something like that. Or, whatever it takes to, move things forward, the progression, and that's a great way to extend the life of a campaign. Eric also stated that he uses character arcs for tiering up. XP intrusion XP can't be used for it. I use this for Warpaint. Works fantastic and helps drive the story. Exactly. And that's what I was saying. All XP that's earned from intrusions, within the game can only be used on in-game things, whether it's short-term, long-term, re-rolls, player intrusions, so on and so forth. That's what all that XP is used for. Whereas any XP that I give at the end of every session, that's your progression XP. So all that being said, let's talk about this other aspect of, using Cypher System. We're talking about using Cypher System for long-term campaigns, but something else that goes right along with it being used for a long-term campaign is what I was saying earlier about curating different mechanics to do different things. And those things can also tell you how long your campaign is going to end, or how long your campaign is going to take to end. Or it can give you an edge in, look at that, we're going to get edges. We're going to give you an edge in lengthening your campaign. So if we're looking at the mechanics in the book, the baseline mechanics, effort, edge, power shifts, horror mode, shock, fatigue, madness, all of those things are just terms that are used for specific ideas. But why not take those same specific ideas and manipulate them how you see fit for the game you want to run? Again, like we were talking about, curating the game, the system to your game. So prime example, I wanted to run a game where it was set in the near future and people were techno mages and so on and so forth. So I had technomancers, geomancers, aeromancers. So what I did was I actually broke those concepts down into, types amongst themselves with, things that, went specifically for a technomancer or a geomancer or whatever. But then I took it a step further and added a fourth pool, which was a mana pool, which, you guys have seen, magic stuff and so on and so forth. But with magic, you can only refresh your mana pool on your 10-hour recovery rolls, because I'm a firm believer that, from just reading and so on and so forth, you don't get all of your magic back overnight. You just don't. You don't get the ability to cast it all back. But I didn't want to hinder people, with their intellect and so on and so forth, because, through rest, yeah, your brain is functioning, but that don't mean your endurance is all your endurance is back. All the magic that you've absorbed is back. So this is another way that can lengthen a campaign, but also give you the feel that you're looking for your game. Aloof and Poof, you said quit hacking AA. What is AA? What are you talking about? So, unless he's talking about you, Ancient Albatross. Not sure. So let me just look on just making sure I haven't missed anybody. Oh, Stormbringer said, being a low prep hobbyist, the more I use it, the more I can use that is already in the rules, the better. That's a better way for me. And yeah, that's really what I'm saying. If you become kind of intimate with the rules of Cypher System, you can manipulate them very simply. You can manipulate the rules to fit whatever idea you're moving through, which is highly cool. Let's see. Brilliant Loser says, also think the best thing about Cypher in long-term settings is that it has inbuilt ways of lowering your power levels as you go. This is also true. You can control just what can be done in the world just by the manipulation and understanding how levels work, how you as a GM interact with the world around you, or how the players are going to interact with the world around them, I should say. That one brilliant thing that, Charles Ryan said about Cypher System, he said this to me years ago, probably a good 8 years ago, and it has stuck with me. The rules in Cypher System are for the players, not the GM. And as Al is saying, he says Cypher provides a ton in raw to extend the life of a game. But because of how easy Cypher is to homebrew stuff for you, you could even have players go beyond tier 6 and start making your own stuff if you're that dedicated. And that is the honest to God truth. I mean, Unmasked is the reason why I started writing stuff for Cypher, because, like we all said, when Unmasked came out, we were disappointed because there wasn't enough powers in it and so on and so forth. But that in turn, looking back over it all, it wasn't that the system was bad. It wasn't that, I mean, not the system, but the setting was bad, or that the book was terrible or anything. Actually, the lore for that setting is great. The mechanic of having the dual character sheet, the mask form and the human form. So many great nuanced aspects that work for Cypher System and work for the setting. It's just that it didn't have enough of what we were looking for. When you go to play a superhero game, you're looking for a list of powers and a list of abilities and so on and so forth. So that being said, when you look at Unmasked now that we have Claim the Skies and the Origin, Unmasked takes on an entirely new light. It becomes this wonderful new piece of equipment, this setting that is rich with a lot of lore that you can do so many things with. And the thing about it is, the way it's set up for an encapsulated long term, but it can also be set up for this long term story. I mean, just with the fact that we got shows out like Stranger Things, and you got games like Kids on Bikes and Tales from the Loop and stuff like that, you can literally lean into those concepts of telling this grand story. You know, children being experimented upon, or the fact that they're young and they still have enough, you know, in touch with enough with their imagination and the wonder of the unknown that abilities and powers come to them. I mean, such a plethora of ways to go. And you can say, listen, I want a 2-year campaign with this. I think it gives you more control in the sense that you can say exactly or roughly estimate how long a campaign is going to go. Whereas in other systems, they just kind of go, and then like when you look at 5e and stuff like that, that are, stringent on that level 20, what happens after level 20? You know, those are the things, um, and like Al said, all the different books Cypher has help extend the game too. You ran out of stuff to use in the CSR, pick up any one of the white cover books and reskin it to fit the setting that you're running. And then the fact that we got 2 more white books coming out, that too is going to, just extend the life of what you want to do. And I think more than anything, we as GMs, players, and so on and so forth, kind of have to sometimes leave our previous knowledges or biases at the door when we pick up another system. But especially picking up Cypher System, because if you're trying to look at Cypher System in the same venue or vein that you look at D&D or Savage Worlds or any of those, you're going to be sorely disappointed and you're not going to get it. I like that, Al. He said those 2 books are literally an infinite campaign, and that's true. The Strange and Planebreaker, Path of the Planebreaker, and The Strange, literally infinite campaign. You can do whatever you want. You can have the game go on as long as you want. You can literally, if you can conceive it and how you want to do it, you could literally have player characters become powerful enough to challenge a planivore, which, is kind of crazy. But yeah, and you can do it with either book or both books together. I mean, when you think about it, because The Strange and Path of the Planebreaker are just kind of interpretations of the same idea, but just in 2 different settings. One is, pure fantasy and high magic, and the other one is alternative science fiction. And again, these are things to look at when you sit down to craft your adventure. And I think Cypher is also showing us just what it's capable of. When you think about it, we've got Old Gods of Appalachia, Tidal Blades, we've got and now the Magnus Archives is going to be the next thing that they're going to be doing. So you think about it, you got just those 3 items alone, which can be crafted into these massive campaigns, or it could just be series of one-shots built right within those worlds. So it really begs the question what it is you want to do and what it is, you're willing to learn in order to make these things happen. I know myself, Al, and Anthony are always available to talk about, this stuff and kind of give people ideas. The stream is coming to an end because, I'm not going to sit up here and rant for 2 hours, even though I could. But I will say, if there's any questions, if there's any more comments from the audience, please, throw them out there and I will answer them to the best of my ability. and, we'll take it from there. But I think, me saying the stuff that I've said and just the comments from the audience, it seems like everybody is starting to kind of catch on to how to manipulate Cypher, and make it do what it is you need it to do. Because embracing that concept, I think you'll literally have, you literally have an endless supply of what you want to do, but you have to ask yourself certain questions. Everybody's heard me talk about my the paradigm shift when it comes to Cypher. This is all part of that. Looking at how you want to tell your stories and not leaning on you don't have to lean on the excuse or turn into the excuse of the system. Well, the system doesn't allow this, or the system doesn't do that, or it does. Cypher's built for you to tell the system what to do versus the system telling you what to do. And I think that is the saving grace when it comes to Cypher. So, Brilliant Loser says he has a ton of ideas now for his next campaign. I appreciate that. I'm glad we could help. That's what we're here for. And you got that right, Mike. Mike says the game is only as good as the players. This is true. The game is only as good as the players, but that means everybody at the table, the GM and the PCs. It's a collaborative. That's the biggest thing I think with Cypher System I want everybody to understand. It's collaborative. Do it together. Interactive storytelling. And that will take you to so many heights. There's so many levels of enjoyment when you embrace that concept. Hey, Tammy, I'm glad to see you here. I hope I'm doing it justice. But yeah, you embrace the story, and you basically let your characters, your players, they're the stars of the story. And if you make your players the stars of the story and you are just directing the action, trust me, the fun goes through the roof. I remember the smiles. I remember the people saying, oh man, that was great. That's what I look for. And that's what I strive for, And I think if we start looking at Cypher System as this great storytelling tool versus, the game, it changes the aspects of what you're capable of doing. So, any more words from the audience before I take us home? So, in the infamous words of Anthony, if you like us and you like what we do, come on, join our Discord. We have the largest fan-run server on Discord for all things Monty Cook games, with games being run at all times of the day and night. Not a fan of Discord? Join our Facebook group. Not as big, but still plenty of discussions to be had. I mean, from one degree to the next. Subscribe to us on YouTube. If you ever miss one of our Twitch streams, and these will always be free. So on YouTube, we're trying to get, actually we are over 1,000. So we're just trying to get our numbers up there, and we appreciate that much. Not into those things, you can always give us a little donation on Ko-fi, or you can check out our store and pick up some of this great gear that I get to wear with the Cypher Unlimited logo on it. Buy some merch, enjoy the stuff. But at the end of the day, we love you guys. So that being said, I'm going to say good evening, and we will see you later.